Welcome to this edition of Leading in the 21st Century, Leadership Lessons from the Front Lines. In this podcast series, we interview leaders from various backgrounds and industries with the goal of understanding today's leadership landscape and to identify leadership best practices. I'm your host, Mike Cherry, and I'm an associate faculty member of the Organizational Leadership Department at Lewis University's College of Business. In our master's and bachelor's degree programs, we investigate various leadership theories with the intention of students applying these theories to their leadership practice. This podcast series is one way we can assist the transition from theory to practice. In this edition, our guest is Janeen Eischen. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much, Mike. Really happy to be here today.
Excellent. Probably a nice way to kind of set the stage for this as students may be listening to this, and potential students listening to this. Give us a kind of a sense of what your role is and in particular, what are those leadership responsibilities?
Sure. So I currently work for McDonald's Corporation, and as my role as people manager working in a field office, I'm responsible for partnering with our owner-operators who own restaurants throughout the various locations. I support 5 separate states in working with them to train as well as execute on the people tools that they would use in their organization to attract or engage their employees. I also support about 75 staff members, and that's really with talent management as well as succession planning. To support their career goals, counseling, performance improvement plans, etc. So spent a lot of time in situations where you might have to have conversations with individuals, whether they are having some conflict with their boss. There's a lot of change going on in the organization right now. So conflict management, change management, crucial conversations are critically important in the organization right now, and it continues to change. It's been changing a lot over the last 5 years, and it's continuing to do so.
Right. Excellent. So I think this might be a nice tie-in question here is, as you talked about change and conflict, well, certainly those are near and dear. Those are classes we have going on right now in the program. So what's the connection here with organizational leadership, and kind of what brought you to our program and your completion of it?
So I was pursuing my undergrad, and I got a bachelor's from Lewis, a BA in management with organizational leadership as my concentration. And I really liked having the ability to understand those concepts from servant leadership to change management. And it was something that I felt was just a natural progression for me to then move to the MA program and then focus in on getting my degree in organizational leadership. I am in a leadership position in this position that I'm in as a part of the field team. So many of the things that happen there on a broad sense with our employees or meetings with owner-operators who are individual business owners, I am at the table for those types of things. So I wanted to be able to have a full breadth of knowledge, not just in the business, but then have the education as well, and it seemed to mirror the two together very well.
Right. The purpose for the degrees, certainly there's the one of completing it. Was that like a corporate requirement too, sort of as you saw your career pathway and saying, boy, I need the master's, or did that not necessarily play into?
So it didn't play into it. Getting finishing my degrees, because I did have an associate's degree. So getting my BA and then completing my master's degree has always been a personal goal of mine.
Sure.
And I just was the right time for me to do that, being that my family was already grown, or they were at a point where I could step away and would have the ability to then get my education completed and be in a position where I had been with the organization for a while. I could draw on those examples that were happening within the company, which was very beneficial to share. I think that's where you get a lot of your learnings in each of the classes when you're getting those things from others that are working for other organizations. And then there's that sharing that goes on and how the concepts are applied within those different organizations. So that was just the right time for me. It was probably, I started that journey, my educational journey, in 2007 and then completed it in 2016. So over the course of time, taking one class at a time and making sure that I was still meeting my other obligations with my family.
Excellent. We'd like to hear that. Very good. So this connection you have both with the staff that you're supporting as well as these owner operators, if you were to kind of look across that landscape and say, what are leadership trends?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess we could say they're challenges, but maybe they're opportunities, however they are. Let's just say trends. So as you kind of look in the landscape, what are those leadership trends that you see? They might be continual patterns from years ago, or they might be more right now. What do you see?
So I think leaders have to be extremely resilient, but also have to have that change management mindset.
Okay.
Because the business and the organization, the industry starting with, is changing. And what's required is changing. And then looking internally that in order to stay current and relevant to customers, you have to change as an individual supporting the business.
Right.
But then you also, with 5 different generations in a workplace, you also have to be changing and resilient to what they need and adapting along the way. Also, communication is critical and key. I mentioned before about conflict management. With change is a lot of conflict, misunderstanding. A lot more of the communication that's done is in a variety of ways, whether it's webcasts, phone calls, face-to-face meetings. We don't always bring everybody together to sit in a room and have a meeting. So you're in these different mediums, and how do you ensure that the message is getting across and that everyone is clear on what the expectations are? So those are some of the key trends I'm seeing in the industry that I'm in today.
Excellent. I pick up resilience. You hit that a couple of times. When you think about resilience, how can a leader build that resilience muscle?
So I think that the challenge is really being open to what's happening and what's coming at you.
Right.
Sometimes you obviously can't change the past.
Sure.
So how are you open to the various things that may be different within your organization? In McDonald's, there's a lot of individuals that started in a restaurant at a restaurant level.
Right.
So when I'm working with folks, they've been with the company for 40 years.
Wow.
So that's a lot of time of being very set and grounded in the things that you know, and especially most of them come from that operations background.
Okay.
So one of the things that I'm seeing now within the company is it's not so much about the next promotion, it's more about gathering those skill sets so that you build your toolbox and you have the ability to not only be a sound HR professional, but you also have the ability to understand operations, or you can understand marketing because you're having those different skill sets. You're doing some of those different things, but you have to be able to be open and just kind of ride the wave of what's coming, because every role isn't going to look like it did in the past. Operations is very different than what it was even 5 years ago when I first came into this role. It's changed a lot, and definitely with the changes that we saw last year, we really are looking at the business more holistically, and it's more of a business development role and less of an HR business partner role, although the business partner role still is there on the staff side.
Right. Well, that may be a nice little segue to think about some of your leadership influences. So, as you think about those folks, leaders that have influenced you, who are those folks?
So I am influenced. I think of somebody in particular that was my manager a number of years ago, and he was an individual that he could ask me to do something very small, something very large, and I would want to jump off a building to try to make that happen, because he always focused on the positive. So for me, that's important, because there are some things that, you feel like, well, some of those are things I've been trying to change and work on, but some of them may be part of my personality.
Right.
So what I liked is focusing in on the strengths that I have, focusing in on the positive, I believe naturally draws up those other opportunities, makes them better. You're more aware of them. Also leaders that I've had a couple of managers that have just this enormous emotional intelligence. They really know who they are. Okay. They accept and are open to feedback, which is important to me. I'm open to feedback, and I want to know that I have a leader and a partner. So I've seen that also with a couple of leaders that I've worked with in my field office as well, who I didn't report to directly, but just watching them in terms of how they handle the discussion, whether it's with an operator and it may be a difficult conversation that they have to have. But there's always this level of respect for the person and what they bring to the table, and then knowing themselves and then working to the best solution. So again, focusing in on the positive and not what that opportunity is, but how do we get to the best solution for all involved? And those are some of the folks that I gravitate to, especially along the lines of just that positivity.
Yeah, no, that's great. You think that positivity, that self-awareness, you may have stolen the thunder from the next question, but maybe we can kind of think of it as kind of a listing in some way, shape, or form of the characteristics you would consider of an effective leader. So kind of quote unquote effective leader. What are those key characteristics?
For me, it's being adaptable and flexible. Again, being open to feedback and understanding what your opportunities are. Maybe we're not focusing in on them. I'm certainly not there, like my boss's leader necessarily, but just being able to have that conversation and be open. Communication is key. Knowing that the only way to resolve anything is just through that dialogue and being able to figure out what you need to do to make a change so that things will move in the right direction. Leading distraction. Okay. So what are those things that are going to get you to the other side that make the most sense, that tie into the business strategy? And ultimately make sure that everyone is meeting the goal to move the business forward and to move their own development forward.
Nice. I like that little bit of room left on the plate. I had an interview recently with an individual that gave me this new analogy to that. Usually we say we got to take something off.
You're right.
Her line was, this person was trying to put 6 pounds in a 5-pound bag. And I thought, that is so, I can just see
That's
stuff
very true.
like in my head, just things falling over, right? There's just no more space.
Yes.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Would you like to complete a statement?
Sure.
I know I am a leader because ...
I know I'm a leader because I want to be. I seek leadership opportunities out. I want to lead others. I want the opportunity to coach and counsel, educate and develop anytime that I can. And for me, that's always been who I am. So that's why it was so natural when I thought about the program here at Lewis and the management undergrad and the organizational leadership graduate degree, that it just tied in nicely to what I've always been and the person that I believe I am. But I want to be. I want to be that person people lean on. I want to be that person they come to. And I think I'm very calming. Even in the most craziest situations, again, as long as I know, we'll get through it and we'll get to the other side and everybody will win in the end. And so I enjoy that role. I like leading others.
Yeah. Well, as you talk about it's just who I am, I mean, that just brings to mind the question we hear so often. Is leadership nature? I mean, we're just innate, or is it nurture? And what would you say? I mean, is it something you're born with, or is it something is this a skill we can learn?
I think it's a skill you can learn.
Yeah.
I think you can learn it.
Right.
But again, it goes back to you have to have some hard conversations with yourself. Right. If you're getting feedback that is similar and is saying the same things, I think you need to stop and say, what is that I need to get past so that I can be that leader? But I do also think there are just some folks that are born with it and that we gravitate to. But I do think being a leader is something that we can learn.
Excellent. If you had a key piece of advice for current students, you've been through the program, alumni double at Lewis, a frequent flyer, dare we say. What would be your advice to students in particularly the master's, so the MAOL?
I would say enjoy every moment of understanding the the things that you're getting from the other students and sharing your commonalities from being students in the program, the learnings from the program, share with each other, and even after you're done, continue to keep those connections, because there are folks that I'm still connected to that we've graduated from the program, and I really value them as coaches and as leaders, and they've connected me to other things, because you want to keep those connections going.
Right.
And the program has such wonderful foundation and lots of sharing, and I even work with some folks that are in the program now, and being able to check in with them and how are they doing, what are they like, what are some of the professors that they have that we had in common, which I think is great, because everybody was just very open, very willing to provide additional information, help, resources, and I've always found the Lewis community to be very open in that way.
Good. So Janeen, thank you for your time and knowledge today, and for those listening, please be on the lookout for future editions.